breakthrough media.
So now, if guns were banned overnight, do you think all or most of dangerous people will still have access to those firearms?
I feel like that'll cause problems in itself if you ban it from everywhere, because people will find alternative sources to get weapons.
Even if you were to ban guns, there would still be people who would obtain it illegally.
People that are very sick and very evil will find a way to carry out their agenda, whether the law makes it easy or hard for them.
They probably would still have access to those firearms, because if it's banning the firearm doesn't mean that, okay, you're gonna go into everybody's house and take away, their firearm individually, and people are gonna be notified ahead of time that that is coming around, so it's gonna be impossible to do that.
It's so complicated, because if you say just a blanket statement, then there's gonna be 5 exceptions to that, there's gonna be 10 exceptions to that. It gets too complicated.
I don't think you should ban it, because banning it is going to make it worse.
Then you're allowing the government to tell you what's okay and what's not. And getting the government further involved is not the answer.
Because people are so creative. They're going to come up with something to get the same
Drugs
extent.
are illegal, right? Everybody smokes weed, dude.
In the ongoing war of words to solve the problem of school violence, the amount of facts, logic, and most importantly, voices that should be heard and weighed but aren't is laughable. Tragically, 17 innocent lives later, we're still not any closer to solving the problem because, well, agenda. The FBI failed to protect these kids. The sheriff's office failed to protect these kids. School officials failed to protect these kids. And of course, we all know the resource officer blatantly failed to protect these kids. For some reason, none of these egregious failures matter because, well, we know that when a kid is riding his bike down the street and gets hit by a car, it's the NRA's fault. Just this week, a school shooting was stopped before a single innocent life was lost because a good guy with a gun put an end to it. You want to save innocent lives? Take the millions of dollars going to this carnival of a march and hire armed guards in schools all over this country. But then these kids would have to shrink from the spotlight and go back to their homework. And the forces funding them would lose the opportunity to further an agenda that's a million times bigger than the guns. So no, it needs to be the NRA's fault. As one-sided, logic-deprived, and intellectually dishonest as I think this march is, I would defend the right of students to protest as vigorously as I spent the last 11 years protecting the Second Amendment. But the real messed up thing is, this festival masquerading as a march is organized by a group that is actively trying to restrict my First Amendment right by trying to get this show, along with the rest of NRA TV, kicked off of Amazon, Apple, Roku, YouTube, and every other mainstream media platform, merely because they don't like how I use my First Amendment right to advocate for my Second Amendment right. So I have to ask, what are you really marching for? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like a march to burn the Constitution and rewrite the parts that you all like in crayon. No one can point this out better than Killer Mike, who not only knows how guns can solve the problems society faces, he can tell you firsthand what gun ownership means to this nation's safety and its structure. With everything that's happened, like with the Parkland shooting.
Yeah. Very tragic.
Very. And what's odd to me, I know why it's being done. It's systematic.
Yeah.
But this idea that because I'm a gun owner or I'm hardcore about the Second Amendment or, from that perspective, it's like, that doesn't mean that I lack the empathy or the ability to sympathize
Not
with
at
what
all.
happened.
Yeah, that's not at all.
If anything, it's quite the opposite.
Yeah.
It's like, we disagree about how we both want to save these kids' lives.
Yeah.
Period. But somehow, because my method doesn't agree with your method,
Yeah.
I'm a monster.
Yeah.
Or something wrong
And that's
with
unfair.
Me, you know what I mean?
I have worked as a tireless advocate on the behalf of children, disenfranchised women in my community.
Yeah.
And I've also worked with gun groups like Georgians Against Gun Violence that are not, you know, the most pro-Second Amendment.
Yeah.
But I say if there's a table to be sat at, the gun owner needs to be there. So I kind of try to see a problem from the whole perspective. And there have been things that you've disagreed with me. There's been that I disagree with you. As friends, we've talked, right? But there was something dead on that the woman who's an NRA spokesman said, and everyone just kind of lost it. What's her name?
Dana.
Dana said something. I don't agree with everything Dana says, but Dana says that the tears of white mothers are like ratings, and that's so true. And it was so sad to hear her acknowledge it. Yeah. But it's true, and black people know it's true because black people say it in conversations in coffee houses to themselves.
There's a lot of people who think they woke out here will realize very quickly they ain't so woke.
You not woke. You not woke. Nah. Wakanda, everybody had guns and spears and everything else you needed. Yeah, like you can't continue to be the lackey.
Yeah.
Like people are accusing you of being a lackey of the NRA. Well, you're a lackey of the progressive movement because you have never disagreed with the people who tell you what to do. Like, think about that. You have never disagreed with, you've never said to them, hey, hold up. Hold on. A football player just got shot by an armed white man for a traffic argument. A black teenager got shot by an armed white man in a gas station because he had played his music loud. Where were you then?
Yeah.
Where? Like when you went, like start, call, like you guys have to do like a girlfriend when you list all the stuff you've done for the boyfriend. And if you're not in a reciprocal relationship, why are you in this relationship? Because the same people I see dogging you out will be the same people I see posting a month from now says, why weren't you at our Black Women's March?
You know, when you have something for so long, especially when you talk about the generations that come into, even me, right? Some things with respect to my freedom, I didn't always feel this way.
Yeah.
There were things that I learned about and come upon them as time went on. But we get to a point where we're like, oh, why do we need this? We don't need this anymore. Yeah. We're so progressive. We progress past this.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're gonna progress us right off a cliff. Yeah. You keep going in this
You're
direction.
gonna progress us into slavery.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know, people say, oh, slavery can't exist. Slavery does exist now. Slavery exists according to the 13th Amendment.
They never abolished it.
The same people who are telling you we need to abolish the Second Amendment, they ain't there for the documentary 13. Yeah. They're not there at your march to end that. You know, that begins to be my question. Like, what is an ally? Because an ally is not necessarily a friend. Yeah. Right? It's not necessarily, it's not fam. We have a mutual interest in something that progresses us both. Yep. Why are your allies not fighting your other fights with the same vigor you're fighting these? Like I told my kids on the school walkout, I love you. If you walk out that school, walk out my house.
I'm laughing, but it's so serious.
That's simple. We are a gun-owning family. Yeah. We are a family where my sister farms. We are a family where we'll fish, we'll hunt, but we are not a family that jumps on every single thing an ally of ours does because some stuff we just don't agree with.
Here we are, we have a march that's going on next week, and our biggest celebrities are donating millions to a march. Yeah. While our inner city schools over here are in deplorable conditions. We're donating $3 million to a march about gun control. Yeah. But yet we have communities over here that are in economic downturn. Like it's ridiculous to me.
Yeah. Celebrities often don't know what to do. They're told what to do. I had a celebrity very famous, like sold well over 20, 30 million records, called me and said, hey Mike, what you doing right now? I said, I ain't doing nothing. He said, could I call you? I was like, what's up? He called me, he was at a radio station, they were pressuring him to do a anti-gun thing. And I could tell he wasn't comfortable with it. And he said, would you mind explaining them and why you, and I would say, very simply. I said, you know, I'm African-American, 54 years out of apartheid. I'm very pro-Second Amendment, this is why. And before you say, well, what about the children? My daughter goes to Savannah State University. There was also a shooting on that campus. Talked to my wife and daughter after that. The decision was, we're gonna go to Savannah, she's gonna get a gun and train more. And after that, they said, Mike, we never heard that perspective. We surely respect and understand it. And they stopped pressuring him to do something he didn't wanna do. And that ain't just guns. When, as a celebrity, they asked me, hey, will you do this anti-bullying drop for radio? Absolutely not. Why? because your child needs to get punched in the face so he can learn to punch someone back. And that isn't saying that it's right to be punched in the face. That's saying as sure as you're an adult, something or someone's gonna punch you in your face. And you have to develop the aptitude and the fortitude to fight back. And that's just not in the physical.
Yeah.
You know, we are raising a generation of kids where everyone gets a trophy. But in real life, everyone don't get a trophy.
No.
You know, in real life, the cops don't come on time. You know, in real life, depending on where you live, you're not gonna have the time to try to logic your way out of something.
Yeah. One thing that really irks me about this march and the people involved, along with the mainstream media, is the selective outrage. Dana Lash gets up and says a very true statement that crying white mothers is ratings gold. And everyone lost their damn mind, as if Dana wished the death of every black baby in America. Hell, when I said no one cares about dead black kids, I had white anti-gunners coming at me like, how dare you? As if they were blacker than I was. But then Malcolm in the Middle's David Hogg says this.
There is a lot of racial disparity in the way that this is covered. If this happened in a place of a lower socioeconomic status or a place where like a black community, no matter how well those people spoke, I don't think the media would cover it the same. And I think it's important that we point that out as Americans and realize that, because we have to use our white privilege now to make sure that all of the voices that have, all of the people that have died as a result of this and haven't been covered the same can now be heard. It's sad, but it's true.
Wow. The arrogance of this statement knows no bounds. Who the hell gave David Hogg the authority to put on his white man's burden costume to save me from myself by marching to restrict my right to own a gun that at one point I wasn't considered human enough to own? This is the shit we're co-signing? No one said a word about that ridiculous statement. No, how dare you, or I can't believe you would say that, but let my black ass get up here and fight for a right that would have been denied to me over 100 years ago, and all I get is token this and coon that. And I'm fighting for the same rights Malcolm X, MLK, and the Black Panthers fought for. But because he's a white boy talking about white privilege, it's okay for him to march on Washington to restrict your freedom. Think about that. They only want to hear from black people who agree with gun control, the same gun control that will disproportionately affect the black communities. You think they're gonna go to David Hogg's neighborhood to enforce these laws? Come on, people, think. Contrary to popular belief, black people in the inner city aren't monolithic ideological monkeys. We have varied opinions and positions on everything, but most of you all wouldn't know that because the media never covers it. So I decided to take it upon myself and get my good friend Kevin Dixie to do the job the media won't. Take a look.
You go to school in the inner city. Okay. That school is in one of the safest neighborhoods in the US. Your school is in one of the worst. And all of a sudden, that tragic incident happens, but you have millionaires. They're sending all these kids up to a march. They're putting on a concert for them. You got artists and entertainers coming from around the country. They're shipping them from all around the country, not just the kids in Florida. I'm talking about these kids are coming from everywhere. But yet, we can lose that many kids in a weekend, 2 weekends in the inner city on a regular basis, and nobody really has that kind of effort going towards stopping it. What's your feelings on that?
Do I believe that these billionaires and these concerts, do I believe that it's gonna raise awareness? Yes. Do I believe it's gonna help us? No.
I mean, unfortunately, it boils down to, in again, my opinion, that this is another case of, recognition of institutionalization, stigmatization, and societal ills of who's being impacted.
I appreciate them for the tragedy, because my heart goes out to all them mothers. But it would have been a different situation if it was here.
Our streets are bleeding, and they're bleeding fiercely, but there doesn't seem to be the same reaction.
I don't take my rights to defend myself, because again, I'm 5'4", and I'm a single parent with a business that I'm in and out of this business all times of the night.
Tell them, please, how you feel about you have to deal with the reality of rape and how you don't want to be disarmed dealing with it.
Rape is a real thing. Being mugged is a real thing. I know this is one really big, issue that just happened right now, but it is a single issue. There are several others that happen every other day. People are getting mugged, people are getting raped, people are getting kidnapped.
I would have to shut down my business. I would not be comfortable with that being taken away from me for me to defend not only myself, but my staff, my students, I take it personally that my rights should never, ever be touched as far as what I can utilize to prevent a mass murder.
Let me ask you a question. As a resident of this city who grew up in the inner city, who is now a business owner and a responsible gun owner, how many kids from 15 to 21 have you seen either in person, through connections, or on TV in this very city that have died in the last year?
Oh.
It's so many. I can't remember it's so many I cannot remember off the top of my head. It happens so often. It's terrible.
I can't count.
Exactly.
It's been I can't even count. Not to mention the ones that has not made the news.
That's tragic, right?
Yeah.
But if I asked one of those kids before this incident how many of their classmates had gotten shot, if anybody, they definitely wouldn't know the names.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't happen a lot.
If it was yours and yours was in that Florida, wouldn't you want that biology teacher that gave his life to close that door, that died closing that door to save them 20 children? Wouldn't you rather him had a gun so he could prevent them 20 children, them 17 kids from being slaughtered? I would say if it's you and yours, put yourself in that position. Because the gun owner, the teacher that's holding that gun, is the difference between your child's life or death. You tell me what you prefer, and then I would ask you to either leave or you could stay.
Before I leave you, I want to acknowledge the heroism and bravery of Blaine Gaskill, the Maryland school resource officer who stopped the mass shooter in his tracks and saved the lives of every innocent kid in that school. To all the kids from Parkland getting ready to use your First Amendment to attack everyone else's Second Amendment at your march on Saturday, I wish a hero like Blaine had been at Marjorie Douglas High School last month, because your classmates would still be alive and no one would know your names, because the media would have completely and utterly ignored your story the way they ignored his. No one's putting a camera in the face of some sophomore at Great Mills High School to hear his opinion on having a good guy with a gun save his life. CNN isn't introducing America to the grateful parents in that community who are so thankful for that hero and his firearm. Nah. They're running season 5 of their gun control reality show featuring the freshest cast of characters yet in their modern-day march on Washington, except this time for less freedom. These kids ought to be marching against their own hypocritical belief structures. They hate machines that cause death, except, hold on, no, you ain't never gonna take their cars away. They hate the idea that guns save lives, except the only reason we've ever heard of them is because the guns didn't come soon enough. But the reason guns didn't come soon enough isn't the gun's fault, it's the government's fault. But wait a second, they don't want less government and more freedom. They want less freedom and more government. That's gonna do it for this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and look for our new one coming very soon.
Wake up, Oregon. Wake up, citizens. This week, gun grabbers turned in 3,400 signatures on a petition to draft a ballot initiative to ban so-called assault weapons and criminalize their owners.
If it makes it on the ballot in November, voters could decide to ban the sale of assault rifles and high-capacity ammunition magazines. It would require current owners of such weapons to register them or get rid of them.
The Second Amendment saboteurs need just 1,000 to qualify their measure, Initiative 43. After that, it'll take 88,000 signatures to advance the referendum to the November election. Under the draft ballot measure's definitions, any pistol that accepts more than 10 rounds would be considered an assault weapon. The mere capability of accommodating a larger magazine would result in outlawing the weapon. And any rifle capable of accepting a magazine or which has any number of cosmetic features defined by the petitioners would be banned and labeled an assault weapon. If the rifle is less than 30 inches, it would be considered an assault weapon. Those who fail to turn in their guns within 120 days, if the ballot measure passed, could be charged with a Class B felony. As an Oregon reader wrote me, This is not gun purchase restriction, and this is not mental health related. It's pure and simple seizure after 120 days if the bill passes. The filing in Oregon comes as retired Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens penned a New York Times op-ed piece brazenly advocating the repeal of the Second Amendment. No one wants to take our guns away, the liberal Democrats protested. No one wants to repeal the Second Amendment. No one, except liberal judges, liberal anti-gun lobbyists, liberal Hollywood celebrities, liberal professors, and liberal voters. The mask of moderation and reasonableness is off. Behind it is the true face of the gun control movement, ruthless, authoritarian, and thoroughly unhinged.
Boom!